Namaste. Psychoanalysis has clinical and non-clinical application. One interesting non-clinical application is it is related to mythology. We will discuss today four interesting characters from Indian mythology, which are Parshuram, Valya, Angulimal, Ashwatthama, and this discussion will of course have with the psychoanalysis consultant, Mr. Himanshu Vaid. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
So, sir, four characters we are discussing today, are they mythological characters or historical?
Indian civilization always believed they are historical characters, and what happened is history, regardless of what colonial historians would say, colonial intellectuals would say, leftist intellectuals would say. So, for an average Indian, for Indian society, for Indian civilization over thousands of years, this has always been history and not mythology. And therefore, we should have titled our discourse today as psychoanalysis and history. But we are still going with the word mythology as most people understand it. But for most Indians, it is history proper. And all these characters, they are so ancient that the most recent character is Angulimal, and he lived while Buddha was alive. So that is around 4th BC. And he is the most recent of all characters. Other characters go back thousands of years. In fact, that also brings into question our ideas of Darwinian evolution and our fundamental ideas in history, archaeology, and paleontology. One of the differentiating beliefs, or rather not beliefs, but knowledge as the Indian civilization thinks of it, is a very different idea of history, archaeology, and evolution. It is said that quite unlike what traditional archaeology and Darwinian theory tells us, there was a time where human civilization existed, and possibly some extraterrestrials were also on Earth who were of a different race, not human race. And quite unlike Darwinian evolution, there was a kind of evolutionary process where uh, humans came in much earlier than we thought, and coexisting with humans were species which were neither monkeys nor human beings, but a combination of the two and a very different kind of a genus. So these ideas are different, and all the four and the stories related to them are for Indian civilization history. For Western intellectuals, it is mythology.
So, sir, what is the reason to choose this four personality and not any other?
These four characters have been talked about, their stories narrated for thousands of years in Indian civilization. These are very old stories, ancient stories, prehistoric stories. Second, all the four characters are extremely interesting and rich characters. They are not one-sided or bland characters. They are extremely complex and rich characters. Third, in all the four characters, we see the common theme of aggression, guilt, and reparation. We also see the theme of constitutional aggression. of early childhood difficulties. And lastly, these four have been selected because in two cases, in case of Walia and in case of Angulimal, they could complete the cycle of aggression, guilt, and reparation. Whereas Ashwathama and Parshuram, they went through aggression, but they could never go to guilt and reparation and complete the cycle. And therefore, tragically, their stories remain as stories of open aggression without a closure. So, two of them got a closure, two of them could not get a closure, two of them transformed themselves and lived a very happy life, not happy life, but a very different and transformed life. Two of them could never get out of the entanglement of aggression and could never achieve closure in their lives. And their lives remain almost like open tragedies. And therefore, these four characters are extremely interesting characters to be discussed together.
So, sir, what is so unique about Valia from a psychological, psychoanalytic standpoint?
All the four stories are very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Valia's story is a story of a bandit who used to plunder people and kill them. And then we are told in the story that having killed many people, he once encountered Narad Muni, who asked him why he was doing what he was doing. And he goes back and he asks Valia to go back to his family and ask them if they would participate in his sins and share the punishment in hell for the sins he is committing. So he goes back and asks his family members, and they refuse to take their share of the sins. And this shakes him from his very foundations because he felt they were all one, but he realizes each is to his own. So he realizes the enormity of what he has done. The guilt starts surfacing. And he goes back to Narad Muni for advice. And Narad Muni asks him to get into devotion, chant mantra, do meditation and tapasya, do the atonement and reparation, and emerge as a new person fully transformed. So we see here from a psychoanalytic standpoint that this person, Valia, was fused with his family. In his own mind, he was not looking at everyone as a separate individual, but as a fused unit. He also has the split open, where he is a very good person at home and a horrible person outside. He is also absolutely ruthless and without any empathy. And we also see that the guilt till now was completely unconscious because there was this sense of omnipotence in that fusion with the family members. And with the omnipotence gone, the guilt surfaces. And with the guilt comes back memories of people he had killed, family members who were begging for the lives of other family members, people pleading for mercy, and so on. And the enormity of guilt is so high that we are told for hundreds of years he does penance. And we are told that hills of ants, they grow over his body, which psychoanalytically means the sting of the ant is the sting of the guilt. That he passed through so much of guilt and came out fully pure, transformed. And then he wrote one of the most creative and revered works in India, Ramayana, where we see creativity, we see the poetic flow we see reverence, we see sacredness, we see history, we see skill, we see language, we see the person fully transformed and coming out as a very peaceful, sagely, creative, philosophic person, a spiritually transformed person from inside. So from a criminal to somebody who is a nirvana, who has got nirvana, from criminal to a Buddha, from the lowest to the highest, the transformation happens of this person. And Narad Muni is like a therapist. He brings in the insight, which Freud would say, ego should be where id was. And this is what Narad Muni does. He brings ego to the place where only id was. And he breaks the fusion and omnipotence, and with that awakens the guilt. And with that, the transformation starts. And he also shows the path of transformation. He also gives the tools of transformation. He also gives the purpose of transformation. And post healing also gives the purpose of life and takes the person to the status of a Buddha, a philosopher, and a poet, all in one. So this is a very important, very positive, very hopeful story of transformation by self-work.
And sir, how about Angulimal? Can we take a look at
Yeah,
story?
Angulimal literally means, Anguli means finger, and Angulimal means a person who wears a garland made of fingers. So his story is also similar to Valia, but slightly different. Uh, Angulimal also was a bandit. He also used to plunder people. Uh, he would cut off one finger of every man that he would kill or every woman that he would kill, and then make a garland of those fingers and wear those garlands. And uh, once he meets Gautam the Buddha, and he undergoes a transformation because of insights, preaching, and influence of the Buddha. And he decides to let go of the way of life he has been living. So he becomes a Buddhist monk. He lives with Buddha, does meditation, penance, and all the activities, undergoes the guilt, inner journey, and self transformation, and lives as a sage. One day he goes to a city to beg, as usual, and some people recognize him because of his facial features, although he was clean shaven and in robes of a Buddhist sage. And they recognize him and they start pelting stones and they kill him by stone pelting. But while all of this is happening, he does not get angry. He has conquered the aggression so much. And then he goes back to Buddha completely wounded and he is about to die. And he tells Buddha that although he went through this suffering, he never went back to his old ways. The transformation is complete and permanent. And then the person dies as somebody who has conquered anger completely. So this is his story. And very interesting part of his story is he keeps a trophy, an insignia of a finger from each of the person he kills, as though he requires a reassurance of his own strength or of his own masculinity or his own power or his own satisfaction of taking revenge from somebody in transference or by displacement. So we see here the split is open, the rage is going, and the person needs a constant self-congratulations. We see an extreme self-esteem crisis which is overcome by cruelty. It can be also a crisis of masculinity being overcome by cruelty. We don't know. And we also see the person getting into guilt and through guilt into a complete conquest of anger, a complete conquest of aggression, and coming out as a fully transformed person using Buddhist techniques of therapy. and the guidance of Buddha. So the Buddha here becomes the therapist and his techniques becomes the tools of therapy, the tools of transformation, and the person is completely transformed and he has conquered much of the difficulties he had. So when we look at Valya and we look at Valmiki, we see the story of aggression, but we also see a closure. From aggression, the movement to guilt, from guilt to transformation, from transformation to a completely new life. There is a closure. There is overcoming of pathology. There is movement into health. And there is complete transformation and a completely new life. Positive endings, good closure. Whereas in the other two people, Ashwathama and Parshuram, we see an open tragedy.
Precisely, sir. I was about to ask you about Parshuram's story. How does it stand? How does that stand out in the collection?
His story is about his parents had a cow who would satisfy all the desires. Anything you asked for, the cow would give. It was said that some people say it was Kamdhenu, some people say it was daughter of Kamdhenu. So two versions are there. And the king comes and tries to take away that cow forcibly, and Parshuram kills the king and his army. His father is a sage, so he says, for the sake of a cow, you should not have killed the king and his army, so you go for doing penance. So Parshuram goes to atone for his sins and does penance. When he comes back, both the parents are killed by the children of the king. Parshuram is so annoyed and so angry that he kills the entire clan of the king and the entire army, and then he goes around the world killing the entire warrior tribe of every kingdom. And we see that this person lives quite a long time because we see Parshuram mentioned in Ramayana and we see Parshuram mentioned also in Mahabharata. And between the two is hundreds and possibly thousands of years of duration. So we are looking at a person who has a very long life. Some people say he was actually not a human being, but belonged to a different kind of a race. Just as people say Shiva belonged to a different kind of race. So maybe there were some extraterrestrials or different kind of race was on earth. Whatever be the case, the story tells us that Parshuram went across the earth 21 times, killing all the army men and generals because he felt this group of people were exploiting by others by force in the society. So here we see the aggression always open. The aggression is never exhausted so as to go to the level of guilt and transformation. The person is entangled in his tragedy of aggression and there seems to be no way out. There is no soothing mechanism inside or outside. There is no capacity for self-love or other love. Love is not able to fuse with anger and sort of diffuse anger. The split is open and remains open. It is like what Gautam the Buddha used to say, it is a thirst which will never quench. He used to call it Krishna. So Krishna is the word he used to use for a thirst which will never quench. It will always remain like a gnawing open thirst, a desire without end. And we see in Parshuram the same thing. A very capable person, but constitutionally and because of experience, aggression out of control. And the aggression results in the split open, and the split open results in displacement of those people who had killed his parents onto the entire warrior class, and therefore the killing of the entire warrior class. And not once, but 21 times. There are like these waves of rage coming up. That once you quench it and again it comes up, again you quench it and again it comes up. And we see no resolution, no closure, no end of the tragedy. His life story remains very tragic. Like a Greek drama, it remains an open tragedy. Extremely capable person, but uh, without a good life, without peace, with an open tragedy.
And sir, how about Ashwatthama?
His story also is very interesting. He, like Parshuram, has a tragic story. He was son of Dronacharya, who was killed by deceit in the war of Mahabharata. And this person tries to take revenge by killing whoever he could in the Pandava camp, the opponent's camp. And lastly, there is a battle between him and Arjuna, and both of them fire what is called Brahmastra, or something which is like one of the most destructive weapons today, something like a nuclear bomb. And then Ved Vyas comes in and asks both of them to take back, because if both these things clash, it will mean end of most of what we know as the planet Earth. So Arjun takes back his Brahmastra. This person does not know how to take it back. So it goes to uh, the womb of a lady who was going to give birth to the only child who was going to be the next generation, the future.
ठीक है sir.
So uh, this attack of an invincible weapon on the womb is like an attack on future of mankind, and definitely the future of the governance of larger India at that point. He refuses to take it back, and for that he is cursed, that he will feel the heat and the discomfort and the pain which the fetus would have felt when that arrow killed him. And this feeling he would carry with him all his life for eternity, and he would never die. And this is one of those few instances in Indian history and mythology where there is a curse till eternity. And psychoanalytically, when we look at the story, we realize Ashwatthama had a very difficult relationship with his father, who he felt was not providing enough for him and who did not love him as much. He always felt his father loved Arjun far more than him, and that intense sibling rivalry and anger towards the father always remained. At the same time, there was an intensely strong ambivalent love towards the father. And therefore, he joined his father when his father went to the Kauravas. And we see that aggression in him is so high, untamed by love. It cannot diffuse that aggression. It's the life and the death energy are decoupled, so to say, in Freudian terms. Eros is not able to neutralize the Thanatos. And we see there, he refuses to either allow the child to survive, the future to survive. He will destroy everything in the world. Such is the rage. And he refuses to make any amendments to his rage. And there is no question of entering into guilt. Like Parshuram, the rage is so much that the question of rage ending, exhausting itself, or love neutralizing it, and then guilt and pain coming out and reparation happening, those possibilities simply don't exist. And like Parshuram, his life remains an open uh, tragedy where he keeps roaming from city to city, village to village, mountain to mountain, for all times to come, with that extreme pain, that burning sensation, the irritation, and that extreme discomfort and pain. And occasionally he asks for water or something that can cool or provide him some relief from that heat inside, those flames which are burning inside. So the flames of anger could not go out any longer because the power was taken away. So the flames went inside and it keeps burning inside all the time, but there is no way the resolution can happen. And the inside is just so situated, so located that resolution is simply not happening. And this is the situation of Ashwatthama, very alike the situation of Parshuram. Parshuram, out of choice, is into an open tragedy. Of course, the choice is largely overwhelmed, entangled with the unconscious. Whereas Ashwatthama is under a curse. But both are open tragedies in their own way, and both occasionally do some good things, like it is the case in entire Indian history and mythology, where you always have synthesis and ambivalence and extremely complicated and rich characters, never a split character, a completely split character. However, we do see that when it comes to the theme of aggression, guilt, transformation, and a new life, transformed life, a sacred life, a sublime life, on this journey, two of the four people we discussed today were able to undertake the full journey, have a closure, a new life, whereas two of them remain open tragedies.
So, sir, does Indian spirituality offer us some way out related to this repression, creativity, atonement, guilt, revenge, anger? Is there something there?
Uh, yes, it is there. Indian spirituality offers many tools. So it recognizes the presence of aggression, the difficulties of aggression. It recognizes the also the value of aggression. It recognizes the value of life energy, and the model of the mind is different. It is not Eros and Thanatos. It is like life energy being a neutral energy which can be deflected towards the center of aggression or towards center of peace and bliss. So the model of mind is different. The theorization of aggression is different. The understanding of aggression is different in human life and its utility, as well as the tools to deal with aggression also are different. So the tools to deal with aggression are like meditation, idol therapy, visualization, mantra, herbal preparations, yoga, pranayam, energy healing, crystal healing, uh, certain rare rituals, talking to the guru, devotional music. It's a very different basket of tools to deal with aggression. And some of it will be lived out in a safe space, uh, either in sports or in exercises or in certain excess rituals. One very popular ritual is of Avishkar, which is very close to psychodrama. So these are the ways spirituality and holistic healing deal with this entire cycle and inner journey of aggression, guilt, transformation, and a new life. One last comment that I would like to make before we stop is if we look at Ashwatthama, his case is very different from other three, and not only other three, but most of others in Indian history and mythology. The reason is this: unlike in the West, in East, we usually don't see instances of somebody cursed till eternity, like in the case of Sisyphus. There is always some way of atonement, some way of feeling the guilt and doing some reparation. If not at the instance of the curse, then after some time, the person who gives the curse does mellow down or somebody else does show a way out. In that sense, the Indian history and mythology is more empathic, where at the end of it, there is a way to guilt and reparation. Unlike in the Western tradition, where curse till eternity is commonly found. Ashwatthama is one of the rare instances where the curse till eternity is found, but even in this case, there is a dilution of the curse, where towards the end of the Mahabharata, Krishna does tell him what to do to go for guilt and atonement. And although the punishment is practically till eternity, but some ways out are suggested to him. And that opens a door for guilt and reparation. So in Ashwatthama's case, the door to guilt and reparation, although very difficult, is shown to him. Whereas in case of Parshuram, it is left to him to find those doors to guilt, reparation, and a new life.
Yes, wonderful, sir. Thank you so much for discussing us with us this deeply moving topic and taking us through this mythological characters. Hope you all enjoyed as much as we did, and do write to us at hpindia@gmail.com. Thank you, sir. Namaste.
Namaste.